everyone. Welcome to another session of Exploration Tech. We're joined today by Lord Colbert, and it's going to be a really interesting and just overall informative session on variety of topics, specifically surrounding the Employee Buy-in, Belonging, and Collaboration title. As always, my name is Jared Heckler. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing here at Brilliance. I've been with Brilliance for a little over 5 years now, and enjoy supporting manufacturers and distributors in the digital space, as well as getting to do Exploration Tech and meeting super unique people like Laura. I'm going to pass it to Lori and let her introduce herself.
Yes, hello. Really excited about the conversation that we're having today. A little bit about me. I started Brilliance in 1998. My background's in computer electrical engineering, and what most people remember about me is that I worked for a bit at NASA Johnson Space Center as a flight controller for the space shuttle program, which was really fun. I ended up meeting my husband there. He also has an engineering background, and he ended up going to work for Rockwell Automation. And through that, through a job promotion on his end, we ended up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where Rockwell's headquarters are. And I was trying to figure out what could be as cool as space. It was 1998, and I decided to start a web development company because that seemed like fun. Meanwhile, my husband managed the largest data warehouse at Rockwell Automation, and we found that we were kind of uniquely equipped to work in the e-commerce space with manufacturers and distributors. And so along the way, like most small business owners have worn many hats, originally was doing the work of web development, but then also needed to learn how to run a business. And so this topic we're talking about today is really close to my heart because along the way, that really meant really working on my own leadership skills and understanding what it looks like to build a team and foster those environments where people can really work well together. And just even though Laura, I'm just new to getting to know you, I'm so excited to have your expertise and you sharing in this conversation that we're going to have today. So I'd love to turn it over to you to let you introduce yourself.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to get to know you two as well. So I grew up in Minocqua, Wisconsin, and moved to Wapaka, where I currently reside, for a while. I graduated here and then went to UW-Madison. I signed up for the Army National Guard my freshman year on March 9th of 2001. And then 6 months later, September 11th happened. So I used my experience as a military police officer to pull leadership skills from. And then when I got back from Iraq, because I served in Baghdad, Iraq for 16 months, I finished my college career, got a kinesiology degree, and then decided to take that to England. So I lived in England for a while, moved to Fargo, North Dakota after that, and was an activities director for 340 clients with special needs. So again, another leadership position where I had to really develop these great teams and these great interactions for our clients. And then came back to Madison, Wisconsin, and was a challenge and adventure teacher in the physical education program at West High School of Madison, where I spent a month and a half developing community and trust within the students. I took these heterogeneous groups of students and made them into a family within a semester of school, so we could go rock climbing and caving and camping and the whole 9 yards, and they could 100% trust each other. And then I became Dean of Students at West High School and was in charge of academic and career planning for a year, 2 years actually, and then got a principal position back in my hometown in Wapaka for 4 years. As we all know, education can be difficult, and I did give myself a promise when I was on the streets of Baghdad that I wouldn't do something I didn't love and wasn't entirely passionate about because life is too fleeting. And so I decided to start a business consulting program where I help businesses develop strong teams through buy-in, belonging, and collaboration, because that is really the core fundamental being of who I am and what I can really, really be good at.
Whew. Who isn't excited for this session
Yes,
today?
It's great.
It's a super incredible story. I'm really looking forward to this. But a couple housekeeping items. If you have questions throughout the conversation today, feel free to punch them into the chat box. We'll do our best to address those throughout the session today. Additionally, if you get a minute, we'd super appreciate a follow for both Brilliance Business Solutions and Laura Colbert. You can connect directly with her on LinkedIn. You can also find the Strategic Leaders Academy on Laura's profile. How have all these experiences that you've had led to what you're currently doing today with business leaders?
Well, I feel like there's one common denominator with everything, and that's keeping people first. When I struggled with students, I would take them aside and I would have conversations with them. When there was some difficulty with the staff members when I was principal, we would come together and we would develop programs so that we could move forward in a positive way. I'm going to give you two examples. When I was a challenge and adventure teacher, I took the kids caving, and there was a few kids that wanted to find out what it was like to smoke pot in a cave. So not a very good experience, but the result thereafter was those students that didn't do that stood up for the foundation of the trust of the class and spoke up on my behalf and like disciplined their own classmates and held their own classmates accountable, because they knew that that was the premise of what we needed to do within that organization, within that class. So that was a huge win for me, because the definition of leadership is when people are willing to do what's right for the success of the program, and those students were doing that. Going back to when I was a principal as well, we really wanted to have a family feel and to have a positive environment. So we sat down as an entire staff and we decided what that sounds like, feels like, looks like, how we hold our teammates accountable, and we even got some talking points that we wrote up. And so we were really able to forge forward with this really great environment to work in as a principal. So those are a few examples of some of the things I've done in my work.
Really interesting to just think how all of those different experiences come together, and how there are opportunities for us to learn from in a business environment too, from the different experiences that you've had. I just think about teamwork and teams and how trust is so important in that. Mm-hmm. Do you have any other stories of times that you've seen teaming that hasn't been as effective or was particularly effective?
Right. Well, I can tell you that one of my jobs that I had, the boss would consistently, whenever she was out and about in the hallways, she would have her head down. She wouldn't look up. She wouldn't facilitate the meetings. She had somebody else facilitate them. And it was difficult to work for her because you never knew what she was thinking. She wasn't very communicative. She didn't try to create strong relationships. And so it really hindered the progress of the staff feeling like we were together and unified. And it also really gave a undefined vision of where we were going as a school. So I can give you another example. When I was principal, one of the things that I strive to do was be proactive about relationships. So every morning I would go outside from 7:10 till 7:50, and I would greet the staff and the students as they walked in. I would go out for lunch and recess duties because I knew that students would behave a little bit better if I was out there. And then I could also forge positive relationships with them and have great conversations, and that would tie into all the other facets of the school. So it was fun. And so I definitely think that being people driven is one of the most important things we can do.
Yeah, I so agree. I think, building up your account with people so that you have that relationship in place that you can draw on when you need to. When I was a kid, my mom used to call them warm fuzzies and cold pricklies, that you want enough warm fuzzies with people that you can have some cold pricklies. And I think and how you were proactive in that setting to go out and be building those relationships is so important.
When you think about the ROI that I saved by not having to deal with drama or toxic relationships or student behavior, that was huge. And so as a business leader, really thinking about what you can do proactively so that you can mitigate some of those negative things that happen in the workplace, so you can really put your efforts towards growing your business instead of dealing with toxic behaviors.
Definitely.
So if you walked into a group that needed help, Where do you start?
I would start by asking questions and observing and seeing if their values are actually in line with their actions. Are there redundancies within the workplace? Do you have your admin doing the same thing that you have your agents doing, or however it might play out? And really sit down and explore what their priorities are and what the employees need and want, and how is that being executed. I am going to be the first to admit, like, coaches are amazing and advisors are amazing. And anytime that I was struggling, I would reach out to a trusted mentor or a coach or an advisor, and it always helps. And so having that outside perspective sometimes is what really stops you from smelling your own fumes, right? You think, oh, we got this, we got this, we got this. And then somebody comes and sees what you're doing and they're like, well, you're saying this, but the actions actually aren't following it. So how do we fix that? How do we help? And it would be specific to the organization themselves.
That's really good. We have a value called trust through healthy conflict at Brilliance that is really all about wanting to foster people being willing to challenge or question or voice a dissenting opinion, and to see that as something healthy for an organization. And to your point, sometimes that can be really hard. I mean, one of the reasons it's important is that it can be really hard to see our own blind spots. And so sometimes it's really helpful to have someone from the outside that can come and reflect that, reflect the inconsistencies that might exist for us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we often work with manufacturers and distributors who have been in business for, maybe 100 years, and they've seen success selling products through their salespeople and catalogs, trade shows, and that someone's decided that they believe in the idea of selling products online, but there are a lot of other people internally who say, nope, that's not the way our customers buy. That we've seen success through the way we're doing our sales now, so we don't need to change. What would be your advice for how to create buy-in for change? Yeah.
Right. I would definitely say we always have to be future ready, right? Nobody anticipated where we are right now 2 years ago. Nobody thought we would be having these online meetings all the time. So being future ready is so vital. Think about Blockbuster. They're like, nope, we don't need to sell movies online. We're going to be fine. Think about BlackBerry. Nope, we don't need to go to a non-keyboard situation. We're going to be fine. So we always have to be forward thinking and future ready. And it's interesting because I just said to my husband last weekend, we have an Airbnb that we co-bought with somebody, and I said, okay, is this the best investment? Is having an Airbnb going to be something that's going to continue to be a good investment 20 years down the road? Or what's going to be the next thing? Because it was couch surfing. It was, there's all these progressions that have occurred in this field. So is this still going to be the best thing in 20 years? I don't know, but at least we have to be asking those questions, right? And be ready to move forward into whatever comes next.
Talking about being ready to move forward into whatever comes next. The world is changing around us in so many ways, and now, with more employees working remotely, being able to have their pick of jobs that they can work in remotely, how can employers be differentiating themselves and creating a way that employees feel that belonging, feel heard?
Mm-hmm. So this was definitely something that you have to have a little bit of creativity with. And one of the things I did as a principal was whenever we had a Zoom meeting or Google Meet or whatever we used, I would start with a question, and it might be, okay, Lori, think about a goal you have for this week. And then you would share the goal, and I would talk about something on the agenda. And then I'd say, Lori, now call on somebody else. And you would cold call on somebody else, and then that person would share their goal. And then I'd share another agenda item. And it would keep the interactions occurring. We'd still get to know a little bit about each other as we went. And then it just kept everybody engaged because they care about what other people in their teams care about, right? Mm-hmm. And along those lines, I would always ask if anybody had good news to share, or just news in general, because life is still happening and we still have these really great things that are going on, and we want to share them and appreciate and celebrate with each other. So those were definitely some some huge impactful things that I did. And there's many, many other ways that you can do that with your staff too.
We did have an audience question come in around working from home. So the question was, my staff would prefer working from home indefinitely. I want to be in the office 1 to 2 days a week for culture, team building, collaboration. How do I convince?
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to
So,
take the shot?
Go ahead, Laura. Go ahead.
Yeah, my first thought is this. If you're going to be explicit and really, really focus on that community building and that teamwork, and when you have them come in, then go for it, because it's so important. We have to have fun together. We have to have these memories that we build together to create that belonging and that buy-in. And then we'll help when there is that conflict, right? That trusted and positive conflict. But if you're going to say come in 1 to 2 days so you can pass each other in the hallway on the way to the bathroom for 10 seconds and wave at each other across the cubicle, that may not be the best thing for your organization, because they're going to see that as, well, you wanted us to come in for this purpose and now we're not following through with that. But certainly there's nothing wrong with having them come in if you're following through with what you say you're going to follow through with.
Yeah, and I would just follow up with that with just, from my own personal experience, I've always been someone who really valued our team being in the office together. We do software development, so you can totally do what we do from home. And yet we were a team that we were primarily in the office, and that was something that was culturally, we felt like was a part of our team culture. And yet with COVID, we've been working 1.5 years from home and realized it, like our team, like we still collaborated, we still are working together. And as we look to returning, what I'm recognizing now is that people do want to work from home. They've seen the fact that they can effectively, productively work this way. And in many ways, it challenges me to think about, how do we need to innovate? How do I need to be leading differently? Or like Laura, as you were referencing, different ways of potentially leading a meeting. Because I really do believe many employees are like, we're seeing like the great resignation or whatever. People are leaving organizations that aren't providing for their needs. They recognize that they were able to work the last 1.5 years from home and it worked. And so we need to be really thoughtful and maybe challenge some of our assumptions about the way we've always done things. So I think it's a challenging question.
Yeah, and Lori, I'm gonna just say something else to that too.
Sure.
To help answer that question. Is there a possibility that you can bring your team together even when you're not in the office? Like, let's go out for a lunch at a picnic area, or let's meet up, and get drinks at this place after work, or let's have this little tiny retreat for a morning at this cool little venue. I mean, there's so many other ways to build that community without having everybody come in.
Yes, and I think, and that's what we've been, earlier this week, we had after hours time for who could make it in the park, and we had a 5K last weekend that we did together for whomever wanted to participate. Those are also ways that we can, build that trust with each other as a team. Yes, so it's good to think about new ways of operating together.
For sure.
No, go for it.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect segue to my internet issues. Sorry about that. All right, so do you have any ideas for encouraging culture and team building with team members that are spread across the nation?
Yeah. I would say continue to do those online activities, and if you want to connect, I can help you with some other things that are specific to your business that might help. Find opportunities maybe where you can have a retreat once a year somewhere where you can all meet up, if that's feasible. But definitely have those little mini meetings. If you have small teams, make sure they're meeting at some point, right, throughout the week. Do you as a leader have meetings with your employees once a week, depending on how many employees you have? All of those little connections, those check-ins, that's really how you continue to thrive and build a really strong organization. You need to know what they're doing and where they're coming from and what their needs are and successes and sometimes their failures, and make sure to highlight those and learn from each other.
When you're looking to attract and retain talent, how to make sure people are feeling like, they have a voice. in your
Right.
organization.
Right. So doing those things that I just mentioned, having those meetings, making sure that the smaller teams are feeling like they can communicate with each other, and also making sure that your employees are really highlighting and working towards their strengths. There is a poll that says that our employees are unengaged 67% of time at work, unless they're doing what they're good at. So, one of the questions we talked about in preparation for this webinar is, let's say you move to online marketing, e-commerce, what happens to your salesperson? Well, if I know my salesperson really well and I know what my salesperson's strengths are, I can find a job for them that's going to suit them just as well with what they were currently doing. And that being said, I'm gonna just go off a little bit. When I was principal, we were doing this target-based grading initiative, going from traditional grading to target-based grading. And you know what, like that's something that I was good at. It's not something I particularly loved to do. So I delegated to somebody who loved it and was great at it. And we followed up often once a week. But it's finding those things that I know I can find somebody who can do it better. That's what makes a good leader too. So really finding those skills and those niches for people. They're going to want to stay and work for you if they're doing what they love doing.
Yeah. I'm curious, Laura, like in my mind, I think there are many aspects of leadership that are changing. And I'm curious from your time in the military, it's so hierarchical in leadership. And many of our businesses, many of the things we've learned as businesses about how to, like top down, right? About how to lead is very hierarchical. Do you have thoughts about like what you think, how that's maybe changing?
So I call military like the slowest machine that there is. It's like this the train is moving, and by the time the caboose catches up, we're already in the next generation of soldiers. It's just a very slow moving machine. So I don't know if that hierarchical is going to change much, but it certainly should change within the businesses. I believe it was Elon Musk who said, I don't care about the chain of command. Talk to the person that you need to talk to the quickest way possible to get the job done. And it was like this whoa moment, because I can't tell you how many times staff members had to come to me as a principal to say, can I do this? I'm like, well, I have to check with this person, and then I'll have to, figure that out, and then I get back to you. And I just wasted an hour of my life when that person could have just talked to that person and gotten it answered right away, by keeping me in the loop though, right? So how do we diminish some of those chain of commands, and how do we really treat our employees like professionals? Because we hired them for these jobs as professionals. And the more that we treat them that way, the more that they'll have autonomy, the more innovation will occur. It's all like a domino effect, right? So that's why developing a common purpose, developing clear expectations are so important as a leader, because once you do that, you can let them go. You can tell them the what, but let them figure out the how. And your organization is gonna just flourish.
It's great advice. Yes, let them figure out the how.
So can you tell us some more about the Strategic Leaders Academy and the work that you're doing, and what it looks like to work with you?
Yeah. So I am my own consultant within the franchise, and the Strategic Leaders Academy was developed by Chris Kalenda, and it was originally for high-ranking military retirees. I am not one. I am a combat veteran, however, and so they brought me on board. And when you think of Laura Colbert Consulting, I want you to think of a triangle. I can do public speaking, keynoting, and I can do retreats and workshops, and then I can be a trusted advisor and a consultant. So those are the three different facets of things that I can do to help your businesses grow and thrive. And I absolutely have to tell you, I'm loving building this program and these things, because it's something I truly believe in, and I know that it will move organizations to new heights. It costs 50 to 200% of a person's salary when they leave the job to rehire somebody new. And so how do we, going back to that retention point, how do we keep them involved? And it's all about the BBC model, the buy-in, belonging, and collaboration.
It is so important.
Any closing thoughts for today's session?
I have one more thing, and that is, as we go through COVID and these twists and turns, and all the political fracturing that's occurring, we really need to take this moment to grow through the adversity and to come together as teams and as individuals instead of point fingers, cast blame, get angry. It's all about that community, right? If we had a tornado come through our business, we wouldn't start pointing fingers. We'd say, how do we come together and rebuild? And that's what we need to be doing right now. It breaks my heart to see other things happening. We are a community. We thrive when we are in our social elements with other beings. And so we need to find each other's, again, strengths and just build upon that and work together to solve the problems.
In a similar vein, I think when we work through problems together as a team, we build that trust in the process, right? When we can say, we're going to figure this out together. We've got a common vision and we've got each other's backs in the process. I also think the temptation when we're in moments of change and of maybe that feel chaotic is to maybe neglect some of these things that are so important, these aspects of buy-in, belonging, and collaboration. And really, Laura, what I hear you challenging us to is to be really intentional, because that work pays off in the long run. Well, and it pays off in the short run too. It's not, that's whole important versus urgent, and those are the things that are really going to be important for our organizations to thrive. So thankful that you joined us today, Laura.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was just a pleasure.
Yes, thank you for taking time out of your day to support Exploration Tech. As we mentioned at the beginning of the section, you can connect directly with Laura on LinkedIn. I highly recommend giving her a follow. And if you have any additional questions for Brilliance, you can find us on LinkedIn or brillianceweb.com as well. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to join us today, and have a great rest of your day.